There's a sub-area in Wooded Kingdom that has been routed in and out of the any percent route quite a few times, almost disappearing forever once Nutclit came about, but thanks to some clever routing, got added back in right at the end. This sub-area is known as Flooded Pipeways and is home to 2 very fast moons. A lot of beginners have issues with this sub-area because it is entirely cycle-based, and missing the first cycle can cause issues later on in the room, resulting in as much as 4 seconds of time loss as long as no bonks occur. So let's go over the movement. Right from the beginning, we're fighting against a cycle, so there's very little room for error here. As soon as you gain control of Mario, there are a few ways to initiate this starting movement, but what I found to be the most reliable is initiating a roll. But you're also going to want to hold straight right while doing so. This helps prevent accidental backflips and just ups your overall consistency. As soon as Mario hits the ground after the roll, long jump, then once you've hit the water, throw Cappy to skim along the surface. This gives you a little speed boost as well, and we will be utilizing this tech a little later on. Now the next thing you're gonna have to do is jump and bounce off of this wall. So what I tend to do is extend past it just a little bit and then jump towards it. This allows the water to rise to just the right spot so that you have the perfect amount of height required to make the jump. After you've jumped off the wall, throw Cappy towards the right and dive. I throw Cappy here not because it's necessary, but just because this area is pretty prone to dropping dive inputs, and adding a Cappy throw just helps mitigate that. If you have no issues, remove the cap throw as it isn't really needed. Once you've made it to this platform, you have 2 options, either buffer a spin pound during your dive or ground pound once you've landed. This slightly affects the way that you have to deal with the cycle, but either works perfectly fine and you're not overly losing any time either way. After your ground pound of choice, rise and hold towards the left wall, making sure to only connect with the wall at Mario's max height, otherwise this next part won't work out too well. We'll jump off the wall, then go neutral on the left analog stick and just dive. If you connected with the wall at the right height, then you should make it up with no bonks or no issues, and then just roll boost and grab the moon. Once you've grabbed the moon, I recommend the following movement, but whatever works for you and allows you to hit the cycle is perfectly fine, as most runners have completely different ways of going through this next piece of movement. Throw Cappy towards the exit, Cappy return jump, and as you're falling, curve towards the right. If you spin pounded on this platform before, you'll have to walk straight into the water, but if you ground pounded, you'll have to jump over this spiny. Then make sure to keep moving to stay along the top of the water. Then once you're about here, throw out Cappy to get that little speed boost we were talking about before, then stop here to prepare for the next piece of movement, but not for too long. This next part requires you to time your jump and cap dive to not get hit by the rotating spinies. Missing this timing will result in you taking damage and further impeding your ability to complete this room quickly. So once you're in the right position, wait until the last spiny is just past the indented ceiling above Mario, then throw out Cappy and dive onto him. After that, you can either neutral bounce and land on the left wall, or you can continue with your momentum and bounce off the right wall. If you do it that way, you have to make sure that you have enough height with Mario, otherwise you're not actually going to hit the wall and you're going to get stuck underneath and you're going to hit the spiny. So whatever works for you is the best way to go about it. It doesn't matter either way outside of those potential mistakes, but I recommend being extremely careful when coming up to this part of the strat, because Mario sometimes likes to delay his actual hitbox connection with the wall. So if you try to wall bounce too soon, you'll sometimes get a rainbow spin instead and fall and take damage. Alternatively, if you don't make it to this section fast enough, you can stay here for one spiny rotation and wait for them to end up in an optimal position again. This is probably the best way to back it up if you haven't taken damage at this section yet and just require a cycle refresh. If you have taken damage here and you want to get back up the top as fast as possible, you can use your invincibility frames to your advantage and just damage boost through them. This is probably the best way to go about it if you're fast enough with your invincibility frames. If you take too long, you're no longer going to be able to perform this strat. After a few cycles, the spinies get more and more out of sync with the water cycle, and it just becomes faster for you to do it the casual way. So I recommend you lab this one out before throwing it in runs, as what is important here is nailing the cycle, and any mistakes really hinder any potential time saves here. Remember what I said before, missing the cycle but taking no damage only really loses about 4 seconds. If you start adding damage and damage refill to that, you've got a lot more time lost on your hands. Give it a go, don't give up too quick, and eventually the cycle will be easier and easier to hit. Love ya.